The Japanese Film Festival 2024 is upon us, and A Samurai in Time is one of the movies they have brought in conjunction with GSE's international screens. This one is a time travel comedy, and it is absolutely fantastic. But before we get into the movie, I was wanting to talk about the director, Junichi Yasuda, who writes, directs, produces, edits. I believe he shot this with like a 10-person crew. He owns 6 cameras, all of his lighting equipment. His father, I think, died before or when he was making this movie. And so he didn't want his father's life to go to waste. So he is also a rice farmer on the side, besides being a fantastic film director. I think by the end of this process, he had literally no money left in his bank account. And that is a true act of passion. He really wanted to make this movie, and it pays off because this is a fantastic film.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since I've seen a time travel movie, and God knows there are lots of them, but it's been a long time since I've seen a time travel movie that is as wholesome and heartwarming as this one.
It's a time travel movie where the time travel element isn't the point. The time travel isn't to solve a problem. The time travel element is just literally, it feels like it's just a setting. It's a way to get the character to somewhere else, and then the story features that situation.
Everything happens very, very quickly. The movie opens with a bunch of samurai in Edo era Japan, and they're about to have a massive showdown. And during that sword fight, there is a lightning strike. And God knows in movies, lightning strikes can mean many, many things. It is a fantastic trope in fiction, but in this one, it sends Kosaka, our hero, into the future, over 100 years into the future. He is a samurai of the Aizu clan, and he finds himself on the Kyoto set of a Jiraigeki, which is a samurai TV drama, a period drama, but it's the last days of that genre. And so here we have a real life samurai of the era on a TV set. And what I think is the real genius of this film is that he doesn't bring in this character as the hero of the TV show. I was watching A Samurai in Time, and I kept thinking as to what an American show would have done with this. With like Kate and Leopold or any kind of time traveling period drama. The protagonist or the main character that you follow will end up being the hero of the show. And yet here, he is the Kirareyaku, who is a swordsman who dies spectacularly on film.
Yeah.
He is the secondary character, not even the secondary character. He is the character whose only purpose it is to die on film.
He's not just a random dead body on screen.
He's not a red shirt in Star Trek.
He is the dead body on screen. He's the random bad guy that gets killed but gets a close-up.
Correct.
Yes.
And what's interesting about the way Junichi Yasuda has structured this is he understands the trope of the genre. So the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie play out how you would expect it to, in that the humor is derived from cultural context and a person out of time and a fish out of water and all of that stuff. But that stuff actually makes way very quickly for some really good human drama.
Yes.
So Kosaka actually makes a name of himself. He's a competent stuntman. He's a talented actor. And then there is this bigger story that unfolds that doesn't just rely on the same old tropes of a genre flick like this one.
Even that bigger story that unfolds isn't about him sitting in a room and trying to math his way back in time, right? The focus here is the human drama. He is a samurai out of place. And I think that made for very interesting human stories. This isn't an action movie. Like I bristle a little bit at people calling this a comedy because I don't think it's particularly funny, but not in a bad way. I feel like it's a drama and I really enjoyed it. There is a lot that Kosaka is having to just accept in this new life that he has, or in this new world that he has found himself in. And all of that gets treated with a lot of respect and a light touch. It's accomplished, comfortable, confident writing.
There's a lot that's going on with regards to commentary on feudal Japan and what the Japanese people should be focusing on, and how the idea of feuding states is something that is best relegated to the past. Like there's all of this stuff that is taking
Yeah.
place and all of this commentary that's taking place, but of course it's all taking place within the context of these characters and the story. In no way does it feel like a kind of preachy monologue
Yeah.
about some hang up that the director has.
Yeah.
For the most part, you are completely and utterly focused on Kosaka and his journey. And the way it wraps up and the way the director brings the antagonist back into play, and even this final duel that takes place, I think is very, very clever.
Yeah.
Also, really fucking cool given that this is a budget movie. And I say budget movie, this thing was made for no money at all.
I just want to go back to something that you said earlier. There were a couple of spots in this film where I really felt human emotions. At that point where Kosaka sitting to himself and just coming to the realization that all of the things that he has spent his life focusing on, right? Like enough time goes by and none of that's fucking important.
Actually, the movie doesn't focus any time at all on Kosaka trying to figure out his situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't need to. I've seen 20 movies that do that already.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't waste your time watching Kosaka see a girl in a Lululemon tights jogging and he's going, "What?"
Yes. What is this car thing? Automobile?
He just accepts it. But there's also a really clever in for Kosaka in that when he arrives, he is at this film village that looks like a place that he recognizes.
Correct.
Except there's one or two people dressed really funny and a bunch of people not talking, which is just strange to him. But I think that sort of to overanalyze the psychology of a movie character, his brain isn't immediately exploded. And I think that softens his way in. And I think that's fine. I don't need to watch him lose his mind at a horseless carriage and the size of the buildings or running water. I don't need all that. We've seen the movies. He can do it on his own time and we assume he did and he's just moved on.
There's a lot going on the show. I mean, Kosaka's journey aside, and how his entire worldview changes by virtue of the fact that he's traveled over 100 years in time, and how his ethics are being challenged, or what he considers to be his ethics, and how they come from a different era. There's also a fish out of water dramedy. There's also a meta movie about the process of making movies. In Hollywood, this would be like making a Western in an era where Westerns are dead, because I think the Jirageki genre is probably equivalent to the American Western.
Yeah.
There's all of this stuff that's happening, and there's a lot more that's quite spoilery as well, so we won't give it away. But I think it's amazing what Junichi Yasuda has done with regards to how he has layered all of these elements into this samurai movie. It's
Yeah.
such a cleverly executed piece of filmmaking. I was blown away. I was literally blown away. I didn't know what to expect going into this, because I thought, oh, indie film, one guy wrote, directed. It can go all sorts of ways. God knows we've seen Malaysian filmmakers try to do it to less than stellar results. But this is such, as you said, Bahir, an accomplished work. I found it very difficult to find fault with this because I was so engrossed in it. Like, I was lost in the movie. I was like, I'm having such a good time with this.
And I think the one thing I really want to say is that, I mean, you can tell it's a passion project. You can tell that it's a story that he wanted to tell or needed to tell or whatever, but never at any time is the movie about Junichi Yasuda. It never feels self-indulgent. It never feels like, look at me, I'm the producer, writer, editor, director of this film. I felt that that really helped me get into the film because, like you said, we've seen all these sort of indie movies where director does everything and it feels a little masturbatory. Whereas here, I don't get any of that.
No, it's incredibly restrained filmmaking. And I think it takes a very interesting approach in answering the question if old school values still work in the modern era. Because Kosaka being a man out of time is a very interesting genre trope. And we've seen it many, many times before. And the idea of that romance, chivalry, old school values, whether it still applies in the modern era, let alone in a place like Japan, where these things play such an important part in everyday life. And yet, it's really cool that we see how even these Japanese cultural values have evolved for them in the
Yeah.
last 120, 140 years.
Yeah.
And so all of that is very cleverly woven into this movie.
Yeah.
And I take issue with you not saying it's a comedy because I found it very amusing. I found it very funny. Like, I think calling it a drama is too much. It's too
I
heavy.
agree. That's why I was reluctant to call it a drama either. But
I agree that there is no setup and punchline kind of jokes in this. There's a little bit of slapstick stuff that's pretty funny. Like when he runs into the ghosts on set, I thought that was pretty cool. But
yeah.
yes, it is not a straight up comedy. But at the same time, I think the situational humor is very, very clever. And the actors and the director play to it very, very well.
Yeah, but I didn't want to call it a comedy because this isn't a laugh out loud, rollicking good time. It's a very human story. And yes, human stories have comedic moments, but the comedy of those moments do not define your story. Like, you wouldn't call Guardians of the Galaxy a comedy, but that was fun. The comedy was not the point. And I feel like calling this a comedy sends people down the wrong rabbit hole because it's not. You're right, there are funny moments. I agree, there were some. When he walks into the boom was pretty freaking hilarious. When he watches TV for the first time, that was great.
Even in the opening moments when he is on set for the first time and he sees a scene repeated because they're doing another take, like the look on his face is hilarious.
Or just him trying to talk to the extras.
Even him trying to talk to the extras who are forced to remain silent throughout the entire process and are utterly confused as to what the hell this guy is doing.
Yeah.
All of that's really, really good. Okay. Let's call it then a meta sci-fi time travel dramedy.
I prefer the term light-hearted drama.
I don't know. I don't think that does
No.
enough to describe it to people.
Yeah, I get you're right. It's just that I'm reluctant to call it time traveling because we've been so inculcated with the Western genre of cinema that when we think time travel, the movie becomes about time traveling, right? Back to the Future is about time traveling. He has to go back to save someone, or he accidentally travels back and has to figure out how to come back to the future. Whereas this has got none of that. This is just like, oh shit, I'm in a different time and place. Oh well. So I feel like putting time travel there does this film a disservice because the time travel isn't the point of this movie. It is literally just a reason for the character to go to a place where he's not. And I think that's where the beauty of this movie is.
A Samurai in Time really is a love letter to samurai movies, to the Jirageki genre. I think it is also a love letter to what science fiction and time travel can do, though, in telling your story. And the way Junichi Yasuda has utilized that is incredibly restrained, incredibly beautiful. The Consequence is a movie that is so watchable and so fun and just heartwarming. It's heartwarming and wholesome, and it'll leave you feeling great after you're done. Go watch this movie. We cannot recommend it highly enough. A Samurai in Time is showing as part of the Japanese Film Festival 2024 in collaboration with GSC International Screens. Tickets are available right now. Go buy it. Go watch it, check it out. Let us know what you think once you do. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.